line here. But you see, so I want to jump back to around, this is focused on kata, and I seem to be traveling all over the paper here, but I will make the point. And the point is this, is that during the period of time, they were using these, everything was being drawn from the West, commerce, industry, science, transportation, education, clothing, costumes, and so on. Russia, Prussia, France, England, America, and so modern Japan was being shaped in the image of foreign countries. But three tiny but crucial threads which weave together the fabric of their culture would never change under the hands of actually, his name was Inoue Kaoru, who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time, could actually be the great-grandfather of one of my Kogoro teachers, Inoue Motokatsu, another story.
Yeah.
And those three strands, we won't go into depth on them. I'll just quickly tell you, for the folks that are sitting back there listening, going, what's McCarthy talking about? And so when they turn back the pages and find it, they go, oh, that's what he's talking about. So these three things, and which are still today and never changed in Japanese culture. So in spite of all the foreign things and the sport, remember the 1920s, it was the roaring 20s, music, art, sports, everything. The world was a stage, all coming from foreign culture, by the way, except for fistic traditions. Remind me to come back and talk to you about Sasaki Gogai in a 1921 article that he penned about the boxing sensation and so on. I'll tell you about that. And so you've got all of these wonderfully transformative things going on during this period of radical military escalation. And yet the three things that never changed were, number one, is called Nihonjinron. Nihonjinron is three kind of means the uniqueness of the Japanese people, the uniqueness of the Japanese culture. The next one is called Kokutai Hongi. Kokutai Hongi, or in this case, Meiji no Kokutai Hongi, which means national polity. And national polity was, this idea of placing communal tranquility in front of a person's desire. Be like the group. Not the West is a study in individuality. The East is a study of group conformity, harmony and so on. And then, of course, the final one was Shushin, which means
true spirit.
Blind. No, in this case, it sounds like Shin, like Kokoro, but it's different. It means blind adherence to worshiping the emperor as a god. Yeah, as God, not as a god. Sorry, as God. As God.
Yeah.
So those three things are what make all the difference in the culture compared to the Chinese. And so, so from around the Opium Wars, starting around 1840, you get this, and by the way, and the Dutch East Indies, Marco Polo, a lot of foreign presence had been felt in China and Southeast Asia through the Silk Road, But around the 1840s, there was a significant buildup of foreign powers beginning to accumulate their power in China. And during that area, that Manchu dynasty was really, it was corrupt and it was mismanaged and room for a dissertation for somebody else there. And but the point I want to make here that has direct influence over the fighting arts is this proliferation of firearms among commoners. And it's funny and not much other than the laughter associated with the 10-second scene that was Harrison Ford used in his movie. The guy comes out swinging the sword. He pulls his little 38K frame out and shoots the guy dead, right?
Yeah.
Well, as funny as that may seem and that type of thing, let me tell you this, that when a cult, and you got to remember, and people don't get this these days. I mean, I'm talking about very serious folks who are, usually quite well educated and very sincere about studying the history, anthropology, tactics, tactical strategies of the past. They tend to stumble over contemporary assumption, figuring, this is the way it is today, that's the way it was back then, and so on. And without understanding that part of history, it's very difficult to form the deductions based upon the abstract. And so, for example, in China of that era, if you say lived in a little village of, say a few thousand people, or even 50,000 people, you probably never would have gone outside the village. And I don't mean you straight off into the forest for a couple of kilometers. I mean to travel to another city.
Right.
That was something that required a governmental pass, and there was no reason for you ever to go in the first place. And
Right.
so people were quite contained.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, when he's traveling, we say traveling circus, but often they were just little bands of militia who were no longer part of the military, and they were either robbing, raping, or pillaging their way through the countryside, as a force to be known. And often when they entered a village, it was either under the guise of being entertainers, and they're going to give a demonstration or
medicine hawking. And
be careful, because we've also learned that there's a band of marauders, and you might need some protection. And why? Well, we're here, and
right.
just for a few extra coins, we could, protect you. And
right.
And so they're doing two pushes at one time.
Sure.
But when they would gather together in the village center to give a demonstration, this is all relevant to the point I want to make here. Is if you think, it's just a side story. It's not. It's really quite relevant. Can you imagine, folks? Oh, sorry, time out. Let's go over to the old West for a minute. Do you remember that? We're pioneering the old West. They'd come through, Tombstone or something, and the guy would come through with his wagon and, hey, I got some elixir here. If you're blind, is there any blind people? I'm blind. Oh, now, nobody ever thought, hey, we're this kid. We never saw him before.
Right.
Yeah, with the wagon, I'm blind. And he'd drink the elixir. He goes, I can see.
Right.
So, everybody would give $1 for a bottle of magic juice,
Sure.
So in this mindset, could you imagine the same thing in China?
Oh, yeah.
They would have no reason to believe that the guy was a snake oil salesman.
Right.
But they would have nothing to compare it to,
Right.
And these guys would come in and they would do things like demonstrations with swords, or they would lay on boards of nails.
Yeah.
Rocks crushed on them.
Yeah.
They would break ceramic jars with a single chop of the god hand's power. They would press arrows and spears on their throat.
Right.
All these marvelous superhuman tests of invincibility, and then they would fight with each other and escape and counter and do all these things. And the onlookers would throw coins up on the stage, or to encourage them to show more.
Yeah.
And so can you imagine? And the myth and mythology behind it is they came from the Taoist temple or the Shaolin temple or something, and having dedicated their entire lives to nurturing and this remarkable skill and internal energy and Georgie Howe, yin yang, 5 Fingers of Death, my first film, by the way. How they would just, and nothing, wrapping them.
Yeah, the wire.
But they were, nobody could defeat them.
Right.
Oh, Dad, I want to be like that one day. And I can teach your son, but it'll cost a silver coin. Unless you're the mayor, then it's a gold coin, So, this already was a source of creating revenue. And the belief that how to learn this secret from the so-called master would be by dedicating yourself to learning these secret forms and routines. Now, we're not talking about going to the monastery and spending your life there and learning fundamental basics. You're talking about the martial art expert teaching you now, would you rather just learn how to number 1, or the secret green dragon defeats the devil woman,
Right.
So the more of these routines they can make up and transfer, the more money they make in their pocket, right?
Sure.
So hold that thought for a minute. all of a sudden, and these, let's refer to them because of what happened in 1900. We'll refer to them as the boxers. Okay. So these to be superhuman like a boxer, you had to go through all these things, right? But then all of a sudden, Joe Blow with a smoke in his mouth, who never had any training at all, pulls a gun up and kills you in like 2 seconds. So I'm not saying that this happened instantaneously, but the facade and the mythology behind the superhuman part would ultimately fall quietly dormant. And then remember at this time, that's 1848-42 for the Opium Wars, but all the way up, remember, Taiwan. Then the Japanese had 1894-95. Then it was within 10 years, you had the Russian incursion at Sakhalin, 1904-05. But then back up a few years, you got turn of the century, there's the Boxer Rebellion in Beijing. And there's a half a dozen other incidents where Japanese who had, remember, discarded the use of swordsmanship and jujitsu, heijutsu, because they were antiquated and archaic, had nothing to do with it in lieu of firearms, and then from going from boot camp to putting training into military college and into the school system starting around the 1880s, 1890s, and then you've got guys who are I think it was the police department first to put kendo into the police department, not so much for its technical prowess, but more for the training of the mind. It would these Koro-based traditions would become swordsmanship and wrestling, judo, the modern form of jiu-jitsu, would become vehicles, national vehicles, through which to funnel physical fitness and social conformity to create the conscripts and the soldiers and the law enforcement of the future. And so you've got this period of time from, say, 1840 up to, say, the 1920s, which is the peak of entry-level peak of militarism in Japanese culture, which would bring enormous nationalistic pride to the Japanese, where they would say, let's bring these traditions back. And you've got someone like Itosa Anko back in Okinawa. And I don't know if you just read my work, the advertising part now. Hi, folks. Now, in this part of the commercial, this book that I literally stumbled over, by the way, has taught me more about, and by the way, Kian Chotagu, I love them anyway. I love them ever since my favorite work is Multiple Choki, right? And by the way, cousins, born the same year, died a year apart from each other, all the same teachers, albeit at different times, same training methods, and my God. And you got my first ever English translation of Multiple Choki's first book. I got it when I was representing the USK under Bob Frias when Bob Douglas died in Canada. I became the KUSKA, the Canadian representative. Down at the USK Grand National, I got a copy of this from Logan. Those guys were down there at the time with Oyata Sensei.
Yes. Long
before that Tatsumi died thing, And so, but Multiple Choki refers to his Okinawan Kempo. They all refer to him as Shorin-ryu. His first book says clearly Okinawan Kempo.
Oh, wow.
In the same year that Multiple Choki's Watashi no Karate Jitsu was. So, and by the way, they're already shooting arrows at me for saying these words. But fortunately, I'm not saying them anymore. I'm just showing it to. Here are the facts, by the way. Anyway, so you got this wonderfully transformative era going on, and where the Japanese defeated the Chinese here and played a part in the Boxers Rebellion and played a part in Russia. They're bubbling with nationalism and so this idea of and we think it was a German medical professor at Tokyo University who's also the private physician for the Meiji Emperor who was sorry, for the Taisho Emperor, who was Hirohito's father, by the way. Who we have, I first heard this from Rick Clark the pressure point guy in the States. And then he opened up the door for me to look at this more deeply. And I remember speaking with Heiko Bittman about this in Japan. He's German in Japan. Also a member of our early research group, who actually would then later go ahead and write a book about Erwin von Beth's in German. Okay, rightfully so, I guess. And but many of us are of the opinion that it was he who said, during this period, this ambiguous period of transition where, teaching drills to conscripts at boot camp wasn't, shoot me, Tom Cruise, wasn't going so well. And the German says, well, in Germany, what we do, he says, we put wrestling and swordsmanship into the school system, which serves to not just produce gentlemen, but also healthy and fit people who are able to overcome all of the barriers in life, so to speak. So I'm just wondering, is that perhaps just a sociological phenomenon, a coincidence that around that time, from around that period and that Hanshi period, that Kano Jigoro, father educator, starts to introduce, let's call wrestling judo.
Yeah.
Lack of, even though there was the division between Isogai Hajime, who was the head coach, head trainer at the Dainapan Butokai in Kyoto, opposed to Kano Jigoro, who saw the art more as a stand-up thing for. Remember the military guys, you're out fighting in the battlefield.
Right.
You don't want to be wrestling around. I got him in a triangle choke as he speared me in the chin with his bayonet or something. You're engaged, if it is hand to hand, and you are that close and you don't have any bullets, or you're too close for the bayonets. You want to be able to put that guy on the ground as fast as possible in order to take your dagger out and then jab him as many times as possible. So there's those two divisions in camp, but that's quotes, and that's time for another conversation. For I have a new friend up in Tokyo he's a mastermind of Lance Gatling. He's a master of. I've never met a guy so smart about especially about, but not just judo and Kano Jigoro, but all of the peripheral cultural issues that went on at the same time. He'd be a person I'd highly recommend for an interview too, by the way. And it doesn't matter that you're talking about Kung Fu. I just think these cultural threads are so wonderfully valuable. And most martial art people don't look at this stuff, Yeah. I just like to look at butt bay, whatever. I don't care about anything. Goju only, please. No.
Right.
And I think that's, of course, a big limitation as well. But so you got this 1840. So now this all falls quietly dormant. Now it starts to surface again, but inside this hermetically sealed Keno Jiro, and even a guy like Itosu Anko. And what happened to the Ryukyu Kingdom? Please read it.
Yes.
Was
yes.
Because I had a basic working knowledge of what the Satsuma did in 1609. I mean, I read Enigma of Japanese Power, and I read the Tokugawa making of Tokugawa as a shogun. So I've read the minutes, so-called, of the April invasion 1609 with the Satsuma under the leadership of Kabuyama Hizadaka. 3 battleships, 1,500 warriors, half of them with flintlock. I know the invasion story, and then how they would keep it suppressed from the Chinese, so they could continue to bleed the treasury methodically dry over the century. I get all that. What I didn't know was the disgraceful. Take the adjective back again. I didn't say that. You can delete that, but no, delete it. What happened during the transitory process between 1868 was a major restoration, but that restoration period did not happen in Ryukyu Kingdom at that time. They would go on for another, I'll say, up to 1872 before they deposed the leaders and took his little circle of family, if you will, up to the mainland. And then of course 1879 they kind of slammed the hammer down well, that's it. There's no more stipends. Nobody getting more money, and the 3,000 or so folks in the upper class. You had the king and his family. Then you had the Sanshikan. Those are kind of like they say it's the three ministers, but it's kind of like three departments in which the ministers control what's going on. And there's not just three people, and although they'll be the leader of the party, so to speak, right? And then of course underneath that, you got the Aji, the princes and families and all that stuff. And then you got this whole category underneath of patron, Satoshi, Chikudon, Suji, and all these, and they're all denoted by the colors of the caps they wear, but also the stipend, the amount of money they get every. Can you imagine that from around 1872 that was significantly reduced, and then in 1879 it was literally stopped. You got all these people who, I mean, I don't mean to say they were stupid, but their job was working for the royal administration in an administrative capacity or something like Itosu, for example. They had no money, no job after that. And the mainland Japanese, mostly the Satsuma mainland Japanese, exploiting their position and power over local. I mean, local Okinawa's got very, very little. I mean, all these positions of administrative, they all went to mainland Satsuma, administrative, education and commerce, and I mean, the banks were opened by the king, the king's son. Let's open the bank,
right?
And the newspaper company, so nobody can, you got guys like Otachofu, Fuyu, all these pals of the sons of the guys basically running the show, and people, this mass exodus out from the old castle capital to going up north and learning how to farm or becoming bandit. Nobody ever says, yeah, well, at least nobody ever became criminals. I mean, this whole indentured prostitution thing, that's another. I got to stop talking about that because we'll never. I mean, that's whole dissertation just on its own right there. None of which anybody wants to talk about anymore, by the way. No name, but a colleague of mine from Tokyo who's doing another project on a guy named Chitose Tsuyoshi Chito Karate. This project he's doing is going to be a huge eye opener, and in more ways than just one. I mean, the what we believe and what's true are going to be two different things altogether. And how that happened during this particular time is also going to be very part and parcel. But he's also feeling the pressure of people saying, that doesn't need to be talked about. That doesn't need to be expressed. That there's no need to, I mean, actually there is a need, there is a need because it all helps color in the texture and the fabric of what brings us all together in the first place.
Right.
Don't change this, that's it's such ridiculousness,
Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought of a quick story. I'm in, up until COVID, I was, just my whole life had changed from being a martial arts instructor and researcher to being an overseas, I think it's safe to say, probably one of the most sought after international seminar instructors in the world. I swear to God, it got to a point where I was looking for a way out. That's how, I don't think bad, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And the caveat that you don't hear is, how do you get out? How about if you want to thanks, it's been nice, but I'd like to take so
I need some time.
Thank you, COVID, but I was considering having one of our European gashikus in Mallorca, Spain.
Oh yes, with Martin.
So here's the joke, by the way. Wie geht's, was machst du? Sehr gut, danke schön. Sprechen Sie Deutsch just a little, and I would be in Germany. And I'd say, hey, how many states are in Germany? There's 16 states in Germany. No, there's 17. No, 16. I'd say, Mallorca. They go, oh. That's a private joke, but it's one half is German, the other half is British, by the way. Unless you go to Ibiza, which is another party place, Mallorca is such a beautiful culture. And Martin Watts used to come to my seminars in Europe. I said, Martin, like, you're British, living in Spain, you're wearing a kung fu gi with a white karate belt. Like, what are you doing? He goes, I know you. I know that you were in Yongchun before me. I heard the stories. And I was there too. I was there for, more than a year, 2 years. All I ever learned was forms. I never learned any applications. I come to you to learn the application from my forms. So I went to Mallorca thinking to scout out a place. There's a Franciscan monastery up on a mountain where we were gonna, and no, it didn't pan out in the end, but no, I was staying at his place, and so we're training, I'm just doing white training with him. And he goes, he says, oh, what's your favorite form? He goes, oh, Chongjin. I went, yeah, me too. But I call it by the Japanese name, Tsukinaka. And he goes, yeah, let's do it. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4. I go through a routine. He goes, he said, what's wrong? I said, no. You do it. So he does it, and I go, and he goes, did you notice any difference? And I went, you go first. He goes, yeah, I noticed that. And I went, yeah, I noticed that too. And when I was there, well, it's the Pan family,
Yeah.
But now it's the younger generation.
Yeah.
And I said, when I was there, I would watch. It's like Chen Village, by the way.
Yeah.
Chen Village. She goes, and hey, my wife just got her instructor's license.
I saw that. Yes, congratulations. That's very cool.
So her direct teacher is Tim Yoon from Brisbane, and then the Australian who brought Chen Tai Chi to Australia, and his direct teacher is Chen Ying-jun, which is the second son of Chen Chao-hung.
Oh, cool.
First marriage. And so now he's actually just gone to China this week, by the way, to meet with his father, and they're going to get the actual handwritten certificate for my wife.
Nice.
But in the meantime, they give her another certificate. So she's going to start teaching Chen Tai Chi here in Okinawa.
First time that's been taught there, maybe, probably. Yeah.
Well, so and it's funny. I was just in Taiwan. I was just talking to both Master Wang and Master Liu.
Yeah.
And at the Martial Arts Research Center in the Lion Bookstore.
Lion Books, yeah. And
we were talking about the Qi Xiao Xin Shu from 1561 and Qi Chi Guang, and the 32 two-person, which would later be adopted in the 1621 Mao Yu Li Wu Bei Qi, by the way.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, well, the accepted theory. Sorry, the accepted theory. The unchallenged theory is that those two-person drills, excuse me, from 1561 from Qi Xiao Xin Shu, separated to create solo templates, form the basis for cannon fist. The first 108 old frame fist, and it's funny how many of our karate. We have, by the way, we'll have to talk about, because of, now we talked about cultural, all these differences. And I wanted to, and I didn't quite finish it yet, and I will come back to that, but I want to finish this first, is about, the karate has a certain characteristic to it, a certain physiological, idiosyncratic
aesthetic.
And as soon as you see it, you said, well, that's not the same as that,
Yeah.
Where you have this flow or this, this other,
and that's what started that's the reason you actually mentioned we should have this interview. I made a post about karate, and if you do it with any sort of flow whatsoever, everybody says, oh, that's Chinese, that's not karate, because of any element of flow. So anyhow, that's actually what brought us here today, by the way.
At one point in time, and I want to say it was around not long after Sensei Terry O'Neill hosted my very first visit, my very first seminar ever, from Fighting Arts International in England. People started asking me, "What's that style? What's that style?" Oh, geez, I remember some of the first stuff I was teaching, because most of the people I was teaching was Shotokan at the time, right?
Right.
And so I would say, teaching the kata first is not gonna work here, because this guy's from that style, this guy's from that style. I said, I'm going to go habitual acts of physical violence, which are inherent in human nature. I'm going to cherry pick those first for the styles that we're dealing with. So So when I separate the attack from the defense, or the conceptual defensive tactical strategy against the concept, the contextual premise, and then I'll ritualize the concept into a template, they'll be able to recognize it. So I would teach the drill. You know, a guy, you know, two-handed manual strangulation. You know, and people say, "Oh, whoever does that." You know, go down and read the forensic statistics like I used to when I was doing all this research. Thousands of people a year all over the planet get killed, men and women both, by two-handed manual strangulations, along with all the other acts of physical violence, which are habitual in human nature. Okay. Now the guy grabs you and you know, obviously a 52 kilogram woman, let's even give her some more statistics, middle-aged woman, is not going to attack 90 kilogram alpha male cartel member with an Ingram Mac 10 on a side. Let's build it up as best we can with a two-handed manual strangulation. So of course there are personalities associated with the act of physical violence, and under what set of circumstances. Remember, dog in the fight, fight in the dog, circumstances in which the fight occurs. You know, these are the three variables which people refer to. Henka, the variable, right? So you say, look at you know, you're getting your both your hyoid squeeze and your arterial baroreceptors squeeze. So it's not just painful. There's also a little bit of euphoria associated with it, which, you know, sends this explosion of chemicals through your body about fight or flight. And you go, oh. But if you could just muster up a little, you don't have to conjure up a big greenie, just a little tooth for the eyes to get that, just to get that predetermined response. And then a little quick finger flick to the testarones, you know, to get that flick, and then a slap to the ears. I don't care who you are. That's gonna nullify that. Now, how you might follow that up depends on all these other variables. Okay, but so I say, you know, I say, so you do this, and then you stick one hand up like this, and you stick out a hand here, and you pull your body away like this, using the category 2 lever action, right? Hold it like this, and then the second that you pull away from that, you take your thumb, you stick it right in his eye, like this, right in his eye, and then he most certainly, pain withdrawal reflex action is going to make him grab your hand, because it's sticking in his eye socket, you know, while his ears are ringing, and then you take your hand and snap it off like this, and then you pull it back, and ripping his heart out. What you've done is, you know, you spit flick, you pull away, you gouge the eye, he pull you, and you then hit his nose on the way back, head turns like that, and then you pull his head back as you bicep bump it, and then you grab him and turn.
There's good Yoshiho.
I mean, so I say, yeah. Excuse me, I say to the guy, I go, you know, because they're all red triangle monsters, you know, of the year, they're going, Gary Spire, what's his guy? You know, I mean, these guys would snap me in half like a twig, you know. I mean, Terry O'Neill he was like, I mean, he looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time. Even his wife, Bernie, at the time, she was Miss America, Miss Universe or something. These tremendous physical condition, powerful beyond imagination. But I was dealing with technique, not power. And I was dealing with opportunity. I was dealing with opportunity. And all of these things form a behavior pattern that go into supporting these defensive themes against habitual acts of physical violence. So anyway, I go, and then another one of my favorites was, you know, say, because it's Shotokan, right? But I can work it into the Goju as well. But so the guy's got you, and he's got you under the arm bear hug, and you know, so there's a personality, you know, a behavioral pattern. He bear hugs you and lifts you up, and geez, you know, so the first thing you do right away is you wrap. When I was wrestling in high school, we used to call it a grapevine, but I just take my leg and I wrap it around the back of his leg, and I hammer my calf into the popliteal fossa, the back of his knee, which I've bent him over a little bit. And then I would what today in MMA, thank God for MMA, is he's called an overhand clinch. You know, I'd clinch his right arm here so he couldn't pull it out. And then I'd take my right hand, I'd shove it up against his nose. You know, that's horribly painful. I'd stick my strongest weapon known to mankind, straight into his eye socket. So he's only got his left hand free. Sorry, he's not free. It's still behind it in a clinch. But I've trapped this arm, he can't use it. But that arm's free, so I'm shoving him against his nose. I got his legs trapped. So he's got one free hand. What do you think he's going to do? Is he going to reach over the top of it and pull it out, which is a concerted cognitive effort to do it, or is he just going to flip, pull that, and knock my hand out of the way? Obviously, science and nature tells you the answer. So as he knocks the hand out of the way, I elbow his face, and then I wrap my arm around the back of his head, and I get under this guillotine, and then I take my free hand, and I got the radial portion of my bone here up against his throat, and all I do is I just say, hey, now the fact that the dragon and Johnny Bones Jones put the dragon to sleep with the very same technique on was it UFC 268 or something like that. I said, did anybody run and say, oh my God, that's supposed to die, Right. And I go like this, they go, and so in order to be able to modify my posture so as because the classical escape is put your hands on a person's hip, push your head away, push your body away, so you got a space with which to navigate the escape from the guillotine. Sure. Like you do in wrestling, you just escape the back door. I got my leg wrapped around his leg, and then I squeezed my other leg up against it, as you do in Basadai. So it's not, and they go. So I do that for maybe 8 or 10 techniques, and then everybody wants to know what style is that, what style is that, what style is that, and I go, well, it's not a style, it's just science, and it is a timeless mechanism used against these acts of violence, which are habitual in human nature. Right. Some people, and the constitution of a big, strong guy who might not be a fast striker is to grab you. And when you really quantify it, And I used to do this at seminars in the early years, because everybody, my style is better than yours, And I would say, okay, let's stop the seminar for a minute. I usually go to the guys that have the biggest mouths, I say, can I use it as a volunteer? And I would, everybody, I wouldn't get, Shitaru, Goju, Shoto, Wado, Jokushin, whatever, I get them all together. And then I get the guinea pig, put them in the middle, and I would blindfold them. Can't see. And I would tell the guys who were going to assist me, don't say anything with your words. I don't want the guy to be able to recognize your voice or anything like that. And I would say, okay, you ready? We're not going to hurt you, but I'm going to arbitrarily select some of these guys to come up and do something. Maybe put a single hand manual choke on you. Maybe spin you around and just put a rear naked choke on you. Not going to squeeze you unconscious. Right. I just want you to feel maybe a little shot. I'd say, tighten up your body, give a little shot, a little kick to the leg, something. Yeah. A wrist lock or something like that. And then, I would go through, and sometimes I get the same guy to do everything. Other times I would get everybody to do something different. And I would just mix it up all the time. And then I would sit him back down, put him back in the crowd. And then I'd take the blindfold off the victim, the assistant. I say, hey, what style kicked you first?
Right. Which style choked you? Yeah.
Yeah. What? And so the odd time I get some guy go, a green belt taekwondo. Okay. But invariably, nobody could tell you, because the simple fact is kinetic energy doesn't leave a trace signature like a glass of wine does, for example. Before I went to Australia, I didn't know anything about wine. Now look at me, I'm a wino. I can take a look at the wine and texture, film.
There are worse habits to have.
Anyway, the point being here is that what was once Vince Morris said it to me. Vince Morris had hosted me for seminars, along with all the other guys who would go on to make big names for themselves. Hosted me to teach seminars for him, and he would say things like, I used to use that quote on my social media at one time. He used a couple. One was McCarthy's The Electrician. I used to wander around in the dark, but McCarthy's like the electrician. He turned on the. I always knew where the rooms were, but he turned on the lights to let me see it more clearly. And
Excellent.
yes,
Excellent.
And some fascinating. You go out. It was a little quite humbling in some regards to go out and teach for a lot of these senior guys, who are far senior to me on a in a time and grade type of thing, and then realize that they say, oh, I've been studying Shotokan karate for like 50 years or 30 years. It took me 3 years to basically learn the foundation, and then for the last 30 years I've been teaching the same thing for 30 years. Kihon kata and kumite, and I have to think that the two-person timeless reenactment drills are the martial art itself, and they are this in Chinese and in wherever the field of influence surrounding China, so Southeast Asia, the Philippines, Hong Kong, in my opinion, from an anthropological point of view, all of those fighting arts, while on the one hand uniquely individualistic, flavored from their own culture, are all the origins are all influenced from China. About 25 years ago, I set this. The expression it has feathers, quacks, and it flies, so it's going to be a duck, right? And I believe that from the lost style. You don't know what it is, but you've got an end result to work from, and then you can trace it backwards, and cross compare it with other cultures and activities and practices. There's the reason that when you start seeing things that look similar, you keep in mind the Chinese whispers, how certain parts of human history help affect and influence the growth and direction of things. It's not difficult to make the deduction based on that abstract. Right. And I thought, so the one thing that never ever changed, irrespective of what your methodology of overcoming it was these accents, over them from they never changed. Right. So, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I discovered this, and then I realized I never discovered the Shaolin, in spite of what the Shaolin has turned into. Okay. Yes. Sure. I've been there several times. We won't go there. Okay. I'm just saying that from a where in the world, from a research point of view, where else in the world? Oh, sorry. People say, Kalari Payat, this may very well have been, being at the practice of the Indians 5,000 years ago, may very well have been what the warriors would have learned in India back in the day. And if you were the part of the royal family or a prince or something of this, and you would have most certainly learned this grappling and weapons and percussive impact and stuff like that. So hence opens the story of Bodhi Dharma or Daruma or right. Coming across on a surfboard, on a right. surf,
made of grass, yeah.
And everybody wanting to draw a direct genealogical lineage back to that. That's why it is. And I've been to Madras and Bombay and places in India where I realized people that they said, look, that art died out hundreds of years ago. What you have today is a reinterpretation of that. And rather than be like other people, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I used to be really big into the medieval reenactors.
HEMA.
I got to tell you something, man. Listen, when I back in like the late 80s, early 90s, when I stumbled across Hans Talhofer and Benner's work and started looking, not so much, I wasn't so interested in the weapon-related things then. I would later, by the way. But I started collecting and doing comparative analyses on all the empty-handed stuff. And then I started contrasting with my college students back in the 90s at the College of Medicine for martial art with the Kano Jigoro's complete book of jiu-jitsu. There was the 1895 version, and then Irving and Hancock and those guys who would later come back with other other copies of the books I have, like these ones like this, 1904 works, and then what I used to photocopy the two people's practices, and then for half of the class, I would ask them to white out the attacker, and the other half of the class I would white out the defender, and I would say, look at those postures, compare them with the 48 Bubishi guys, and there's a series of other stuff. Oh, just as much. Do you remember the book by Brian Kennedy and Elizabeth Gao? The Asian, Chinese martial art
Chinese
manuals.
manuals. Yeah, good book. Yeah.
I used to correspond with Brian. Who's a great admirer of my work in the Bubishi until he got palled up with Chambers.
Oh,
and
sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
no worries. I understand.
Let's spend some more. Let's spend 3 times as much to go to Okinawa.
Right.
I always thought that was Brian's work. I just found out it's not Brian's work. It's Liu Kang Yi.
Oh.
He showed me. He's got the original book. Brian did. He hired Brian to do the translation.
Oh, but Brian didn't list it as a translator.
No, I know. I just
Oh wow.
I kept asking him. I said, "Could Russ, the collection of never published before handwritten manuals from the very late Ming, like 1620, 30s in there.
Yeah.
Ming's 1166 to 1644, then 1644 to 1911 for the Qing.
Yeah.
The massive collection of Qing, either first editions, not published, handwritten, or rare documents that he's got is. And by the way, he didn't even let me. I took photos of all the other photos that you saw. That's of the other stuff. That's of just the turn of the century stuff, and anybody can get that. Just unbelievable stuff. And that's why I said, "Oh, do you know Brian Kennedy?" And he's dead now, right? So he's Brian Kennedy now. Brian Kennedy? No, I don't think so. I said, yeah, he did this, la 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 la. And I said, well, so I looked it up. I didn't have a copy with me.
Yeah.
And so I said, and I looked up, and he goes, just a moment. And he goes into the secret drawer. Now I get a chance to see the secret drawer. And he pulls out this blue couple of volumes, and he goes, "You recognize this?" And I went, no, but it looks. I mean, it's in such good condition. It almost looks new, by the way. And it's hundreds of years old. And he goes, and he looked, and I kind of went, "Oh, those are the same illustrations from Brian's book." He goes, "It's my book."
Oh man. Wow.
He's a curator. He's a research historian. He's collective, And I went, "Oh my gosh." So it's funny the things you think you know, and then the things that you later type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to put the culmination of one thing, which I didn't make the point earlier. About me studying history of people and like, for example, so there's lots of books here. There's lots of books all over Okinawa, but this one's filled with a lot of mistakes, by the way. But this one is kind of like the Okinawa Karate Kobudo Jiten, Dictionary of Okinawa Karate, and all the so-called leaders, authorities of karate came together under the head of 3 or 4 guys, put this work together. And so if somebody says, "Oh, look, I want to meticulously study that," I mean, forget there's newspaper. You just have to go. I mean, you can go over here to the Ryukyu Shimpo newspaper or the Okinawa Times, and there's an archives that you can, as a civilian, you can just go in and say, they want to know who you are and make an appointment, and you can go and study the archives. And you can look up anything that you want, and there's all kinds of online digital archives here, and there's not hundreds but thousands of articles. You don't even have to speak Japanese or read Japanese. I mean, these days with stuff like DeepL and ChatGPT, probably 4 is better than 3.5. But if you're willing to spend a few bucks, sometimes the problems are with the pronunciations of the Okinawan names. There's some some problems there. Once you get if you're able to get a database to store that information in, every time it falls on a name like that, it'll help you give you the correction. Chris, you could write a million articles. You don't need to be anybody. You don't need to be some secret researcher.
Right.
If that's what moves you. And
Yeah.
for me, as I mentioned earlier, I think once I got a working understanding of who was who, I didn't need to actually know that he celebrated a party on the 3rd of December, 1829, And like I said, I came across an interesting document in, Toyama Kanken was a very good friend. My teacher was a very good friend of Toyama Kanken. And a lot of people say, oh, Toyama Kanken, graded Shinboku Eizo to 10th dan at 34 years old. There's another guy also graded to 10th dan as well, but not too many people know about that. And he never ever acknowledged it, by the way, and never went public with it. That was Kinjo Hiroshi.
Kinjo Hiroshi.
So anyway, so the point is once I knew who was who, and I, say Ochiya Goten's March 1867 farewell party to Zhao Xin, for example, last Saposhi. Where Aragaki Seisho 1840, 1920 there, and Maida and Tomura and the Ryugakse, which is a foreign student. And then there was a menu of events that they did. For example, when I come out with Aragaki Seisho, oh, McCarthy made that shit up, And then, of course, they go, oh, look, there's Aragaki doing Seisho in 1867. Right. So I always love all of that, who was it? Newton said it best, And I got that quote from Kinjo Hiroshi, by the way. He said, if you're able to see any further or farther, it's only by having stood on the shoulders of giants. And for anybody else who's not standing on the shoulders, they can't see that far. And so it was like Funagoshi, and it was like I forget which one of Funagoshi's students it was, but it was the Shotokai guys, not the later generation Nakayama Masatoshi guys. He said, when we used to listen to Funagoshi, it was like he was speaking to us as if we were in year 5, but we were only in year 2. We couldn't understand we could understand his words, we didn't understand the meaning type of thing. And these days, and there's a wonderful new generation of guys out there doing some just really fabulous work, and they'll come across something and they'll translate it into English. And I can't always help but think, though, that there's a self entitled or serving a benefit to that. There's a couple of guys who are doing translations that only support that school, that side, that lineage type of thing, right?
True. Yeah,
what you want to do is you want to say, I like it. I think that's a great trend. I love that stuff. But what about on the other side? And I love contrast, because the contrast helps you decide or see what was the problem and what existed. And why did a person need to reinterpret something? Like what was happening over here? Why couldn't that Mount Side Guard north south rear naked choke be escaped from the same way this guy did? And so that's why I go back to the 2-person drills are the practice. That's what creates the functionality. And there is a pathway of progress through which to traverse by coming into contact with the problem first, being able to have it analyzed or analyze it yourself, or have a mentor describe why it is dangerous in the first place. And that if you do not understand the mechanics by which it would become dangerous, then your chances of escaping or countering it or negotiating effectively are doomed. And you can't reduce it to luck. Oh, we don't do that in my style. Well, I'm not going to study your style then, because I want something functionally effective. Right. So that which there was to know is what that was to study. Grammar was right on that sentence, and so the whole purpose being then, the guy says, look, I use Baldwin. I deflect the blow this way, and then I poke him in the eye this way, but I want to check and trap before I go in the headbutt him or something. Okay, that's great. That's great, but just what are you doing it against? Right. If a behemoth is running at you, I don't think that's going to work, type of thing, right? Right. So it has to be passive resistance from the reception point of view, but a gradual to exponential investment of aggressive resistance to test the veracity. Always, and that's why I say, Sifu Murphy or Sensei Murphy? Right. He's the guy who will teach you that what can go wrong will go wrong when you don't want it to go wrong. And damn it, just when I think that technique was working great for me, in walked Gargantua.
Right.
Gargantua. And he taught me a lesson. So
Yeah.
the idea of carousel drills and changing partners and once a familiarity is established with a timeless practice, how it doesn't work for me. Well, maybe you're not doing it right,
Right.
or maybe whoever teaching you taught it the wrong way,
Right.
And so, the failure is the lesson,
Yeah.
and the failure is what's going to help you get over that hurdle.
Yeah.
You might be the one that has to change, not the technique. And
Hanshi,
so,
sometimes I get a student who I'll teach something and they'll say, "Oh, this just doesn't seem right. This doesn't work for me." I say, "Well, you've got 2 reps in. Get another 100 and let's talk." You don't really get an opinion after 2 reps. I'm sorry.
it's so wonderful to have a discussion like this with you, because I know how long you've been around for, and by the way, just a huge congratulatory message to you on making the transition from Goju to
Thank you.
the Chinese method, and then being able to not just respectfully admire their heritage, but to continue to espouse the values of the two by being able to contrast. And because these days it goes, my favorite. Yeah, I was thinking about taking some lessons. Oh, really? Yeah, I've been doing it for a few years, but that's all shit, Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, like I studied Goju with the guy. He was an asshole, and I did a couple of months of Salat, and that's useless shit, And I go, wow, yes, man, And
You mean the beginner curriculum of those styles didn't solve all your problems, really?
But it is so genuinely remarkable, the blissful naivety of might is right, and if I so the fact that it can be a cultural recreation, Jesus, I mean, lo and behold, it can become a hobby, no different from tennis or anything else, and which people can be hugely passionate about,
Yeah.
and certainly it can become a form of physical fitness. Obviously, it's not an aerobic method, and it can certainly be a sport. Depends on what the rules and regulations are, and by virtue of the rules and regulations, don't they subsequently then dictate the training methods, which should be scientifically approached based on the knowledge we have now on mechanics and coaching and so on, to accomplish those outcomes.
Right.
And then, of course, my joke is that it was I thought it was the oldest, it's a business, an industry. I thought it used to be the oldest. And then I remember
The oldest industry is something slightly different, I believe.
But maybe they serve to protect those young ladies.
Fair point.
You never know, right? And so, but when you look at it from a point of self-protection, and you always have to factor in, which I never see factor in, by the way, that some of that just doesn't work. It just, you tried it and look at, for whatever, yes. I love Mike Tyson's quote about, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the head with a left hook, and
Love it.
And the truth is, there's so much hogwash out there, And there's another one I get a kick out of quite recently, and this is for the folks who don't take the time to study the past or the history. How long have I been involved with cross training? Gosh, I want to say since the early 1970s, Wing Chun, and I learned Silam Tao Cham Kyu Bilji, Loktim Bun Guan, Wurito, maybe 30, 40 different ways of working the Mukjong, and my favorite, of course, was Chi Sao. But I did the same with Dragon Boxing, White Iron. I love Haka Boxing. I'd have been there if it hadn't been for Penjak Slat, Pukulong, Pajimi. I just went, oh my God, anyway, so there's just so much, and you gotta, and I was a collegiate wrestler and a boxer, first generation kid. My kumite coach at the time, Wally Slokey, was hey Wally, was first generation kickboxer. He got the shit beaten out of him by Joe, affectionately at the Downsview Arena in 1970 in a kickboxing exhibition gone wrong with Joe Louis, and then later in September of '74 in Los Angeles with Don and Judy Quine for Mike Anderson's first PKA. That's where Demetrius Savanas, Bill Wallace, Joe Louis, all these guys became the world PK champions. And my teacher lost a fairly controversial decision to Jeff Smith in light heavyweight division. So, I mean, so it's not like I don't know what I'm talking about when we say cross training, and not just in Chinese and Southeast Asian and Japanese and Okinawan. I mean,
Filipino and Indonesia,
American,
African.
And so, but I see today it's like that's the new thing. Let's cross train.
Right.
Oh gosh, I'm glad somebody else thought of it. That was what a fantastic idea. But I still think that having a base, and it doesn't matter what the base is, there has to be a base upon which a solid foundation has been created through the mindless repetitions of functionality. And the thing is, this is, I think things like, Makiwara, Hojo, sorry. Look at this really cool. Look at
this. Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I got
that from Taiwan?
Yeah, it's from Taiwan, right? And it's just so cool. But, when I first went into one of my first trips to Fuzhou, back in 1990, which is where I met, hey, so you got a guy in the States. He just introduced himself to me in Taiwan. Liu Chang-yi.
Liu Chang-yi? Liu Chang-yi is a teacher of feeding crane. He's one of the, he's like the nephew of Liu Songshan.
Right. So his uncle,
yes,
whose name is Liu Songshan,
yes,
I met him in 1990.
Yes,
Fuzhou.
So cool.
We hit it off right away. Now I can't Mandarin. Sorry, Cantonese.
Oh, he speaks Japanese, doesn't he? Though.
Well, so I tried speaking. And he goes. And I heard him say, Nandero. And I'm like, Nandero? I said, oh my God. So I speak Japanese to him in China. He's from Taiwan. But old school, when Japanese occupied during the colonial years.
Yeah.
So I get to be good friends with him. I visit him in Taiwan the next year. I then subsequently invite him up to my house in Fujisawa. So I knew him for several years in the beginning, and I did my best to learn what I could about that style of Taiwan crane, which was created in the 1920s when the four guys basically, mostly Liu's, and then Afan Gai went to because of Chiang Kai-shek, right?
Yep.
So I'm in Taiwan, and I get this. I'm actually bringing it up on my thing. I got this message from a guy who wants to be my friend over there. And his name is also Liu.
Yeah, Liu Chang-yi. So, Hanshi, I don't know if you know about this, but years ago, one of my prior teachers, who's now passed. I think you might know of.
Oh yes, don't say his name. Don't say his name.
Okay.
I gotta tell you, just hold that thought for a minute.
Okay.
I know some folks are gonna watch this. They're gonna smile with me on this, right?
Sure.
So 1985, I go to Okinawa for the first time. I'm with my friend Jim Sylvan from sadly who passed away recently.
Yeah.
Sean Rustahouse.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go train with Kishaba and Shinzato and a bunch of other people.
Nice.
And Ken Talik, my classmate. And so and we went to every dojo you can imagine, and then some back in the day with no letters of invitation at all, And anyway, so we get to Mateyoshi's dojo in Sobe. And we're, and Mateyoshi was such a lovable character, and
character is a great term.
So karate tourism has not proliferated yet, and he speaks a little bit of English, and anyway, we go in and he goes, you teacher, you country, what? You teacher. And I said, oh, my teacher is Richard Kim. And he goes, so it's funny how Japanese hear names, right?
Yeah.
He goes, Kimmu, Kimmo, Kimmo. Bullshit. And I went, okay, hang on, time out. Here I am in Okinawa. I've just made a pilgrimage to Mecca.
Right.
And this guy I'm meeting doesn't like my teacher. Okay, okay, that's okay by me. I know other people don't like him either, and sometimes I don't like him myself. So you don't like my teacher, no problem. Okay, anyways,
Right.
all right.
Yeah.
So then anyway, and he's teaching me, we're having fun. Now, I don't know anything about. I don't know. I don't even know how he knows Richard Kim. I just don't know it.
Sure.
Jump ahead many years,
Uh-huh.
and I'm a Kyoshi Nanadan. I got my so even though Kinjo Sensei was my teacher, would become my teacher after I came to Japan permanently,
Right.
A few years later to live, and I would still keep my relationship with the Dainapan Tokugai, and even though I would get my my sixth dan, my seventh dan, my eighth, and so through Kinjo Sensei,
Yeah.
he would also be my sponsor in the Bitoku Den, right?
Right.
So anyway, and so as a Kyoshi seventh dan, I could hang out with the rub shoulders with the Hanshis, right? Which also meant if I came 2 days earlier, I could spend the night before the big. And that's all, by the way, the 29th of April every year is the old emperor's birthday. We call it Midori Nichi, Green Day. And that's to honor the emperor Hirohito. So we would get billeted over to the Shoden Inn. It was a Buddhist temple, right? And so the karate is not very big in the Bitoku-den,
Right.
Yeah, like it's all kendo, judo, and then old, spear arts and old koru arts, right? So karate's really quite small. I don't know now. I haven't been involved with it for many years, since I got my ass kicked out by somebody who doesn't like me named Hamada. That's another story. But in those days, I was in pretty tight with the inner circle and so on. But the karate people all stuck together. So it was either me and Matsushita Kyosho from Kenyuru, very rare style, by the way, or me and Mateyoshi Shimpo. We actually would room together, okay? So you follow me with this story. That's the best story. Right? So anyway, it's we've been downstairs, sing a few songs, have a few drinks. Now we're back up into our monastery rooms. They're quite barren, quite Spartan, but still comfortable and free, right? And free food, right? So and drinks and singing. So anyway, it's around maybe 9 o'clock or so. We're just getting ready to go. He's sleeping. I'm sleeping here, and there's this knock at the door, and I go, and he goes, I guess we're good. So I go to the door. I open the door, and here's this American guy, kind of bald-headed American guy with this young girl with him, and he goes like this. He goes, "Oh, who are you?" And I went, "What? You just knocked at my door.
Who are you?
Who the hell are you?" He goes, "Oh, sorry. I'm looking for my teacher." And I went, "Who's your teacher?" He goes, "Mateyoshi Sensei." And I went, "What's your name?" He goes, "My name is Kimo Wall." And I went, "What?" He goes, "My name is Kimo Wall." And I went, "Okay, just a minute. What's your name again?" Kimo Wall. And I went, "Oh my God, no, this cannot be. And I said, "Just a moment. Close the door." And Rebecca said, in Japanese, I said, "Hey, Sensei, there's a guy at the door. He says his name is Kimo." Mata says, Sensei, he goes, "That's your teacher, isn't it?" And I went, "No, it's not my teacher. Now I can speak Japanese much better." I go, "Sensei, ちょっと発音間違いですけれども、彼と僕の先生は比べて違いはあるでしょうか。彼はキモウォールですけれども、僕の先生はリチャード・キムですけど、比べて違いますでしょ?" And he goes, "Oh, sure, what is good?" He goes, "I didn't know that." And he goes, "No, I don't want to talk to you. Tell him to piss off." And I went, "Okay."
Okay,
So back
not
to the
right
door,
now.
I just said, "Since I'm a bit tired right now, maybe, Now, what I didn't know was the marriage issue from before Kimo's wife. I didn't know that connection. I didn't know that and how
I've been told this story by a good friend who knows a lot of the background. I don't really remember all the details. I know there was some real challenges there and some real problems. And yeah, but I mean, obviously, Kimo Sensei was a student of his for many years, but then the whole marriage thing happened, and yeah, so I can't really speak to it, unfortunately. But Sensei, we are very close to 3 hours
Oh my gosh, already? Oh, we
already.
didn't get to the question, did we?
Well,
Oh,
Hanshi, if you don't mind, I would love to pick up this discussion another time if you're open to more discussions.
yeah, look at that. Tell us about your transition to karate. We didn't even get the first one,
No,
right?
well, you've covered
Bushi,
some
for
of
God's
these in
sakes.
some ways already, so no worries. Really, I would love to, Hanshi, if it's okay, I would love to follow up another time soon. I have about a busy 2 weeks of travel, maybe towards the end of the month or the next month. If you're available, I'd love to set up another opportunity. So let's talk about the Bubishi at that point, if that works for you.
I'll tell you, just as a matter of interest, maybe we can use this. Is this a podcast or what is this?
I have never run an interview before like this, so
Oh,
this
God.
is a first for me. So I will
Oh,
post
I'm
this.
so sorry. I
No,
thought you did, because a lot of folks do these, and
I know a lot of
I've done
people
so
do.
many of them in the past, I got lost track. Oh,
Yeah.
for gosh, I didn't know that. Okay, so, well, there you go.
It's my pleasure and a real honor, Hanshi. So if you don't mind, I would love to take this. I'll
I'm
probably
not
chop.
going anywhere.
Okay.
Honestly, when I say that I've given up, retired from traveling overseas to teach seminars. I'm not sure if everybody knows that or not, but look, and it's not that I've like had a gutful or anything like that. I think I've done enough.
Sure.
I've done enough. I've
Well, you've done a lot.
research, the tournaments, I've done enough. I don't have anything to prove to anybody, and right now, what's very important to me is helping other folks, helping other people, and one of the reasons why I chose to retire here, other than my wife being Japanese, my children, my daughter's a doctor, she's in Yokohama, my son's a lawyer, he's in Tokyo,
Congratulations.
and their families here, their family. I want to be close to my family, and I like the Japanese culture, and even more so for the Okinawan, more laid back culture down here, and
100%.
and look at, and there's nothing I don't like about here. I'm not big on the karate tourist thing here. I don't, and I think that feeling is mutual. I don't think they like me either.
Yeah.
And no, when I say that, I mean I don't mean that. That, but I'm not on board with any of that stuff, and I don't think you should have to pay all this money to do this when you could just go knock at the guy's door and say, hi, I'm like really serious. I really seriously like to meet you and enjoy the honor, the privilege of practicing under your tutelage for a week, a month, a year. If you'd have me, I'm happy to pay whatever you want, and and let me go around but at the same time, I also get the fact that if you're going to be a tour guide, you're certainly not going to do it for free, But I'm just saying that when I started out, there weren't any tour guides. And that the pathway was on that you tread it yourself. And this is such a small island, you can't go, 1,000 meters without bumping into somebody who knows something.
And everybody knows everything about where you went yesterday, and they talk about it.
Oh boy, oh do they ever? And I just last year, everybody when I used to come here the first time, it was like, my God. And everybody, and I knew all the old first generation guys, like all the, guys like the Yagis and Miyazatos and all those guys who I used to know and train with back in the day, and visit and befriend and visit. They're all dead now, And so it's their sons and their senior students who I don't know really, or I don't know very well. And so, when I first came, the professional courtesy was very red carpet, lots of things. But once folks started realizing that I was here to stay and I wasn't part of their umbrella organization, that I didn't need a rank or grade from anybody, or and I wasn't deifying Joe or Mr. Yakamaka master. I was just saying hi to him and in his own language and stuff like that. I was like, okay,
Right.
And then the way it works here is I shouldn't say nobody speaks badly about you. They have what they call a moai. You know what a moai is? Okay, so when you after training, you have parties, right? And then after everybody's gone, all the heads of style from certain groups, they get together.
Okay.
And that's called a moai. And originally a moai was kind of a community, like say Yomitan or Chatan or somewhere. There might have been a flood or something, and part of the community had lost a house or a church or something. Moai would get together and they have food and eat and drink, and everybody would, what's going on and who's what, and they would contribute money, and then the money at the end of it would go to assist the the people have fallen
Sure,
a child.
sure.
So
Yeah.
that's it. Nowadays, it's not that way. It's a drunken get together, have fun with your friends, and find out politically
The
what's going on.
gossip. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a and I'm pretty 100% sure after several people have come to me later and said, "Hey, guess what? We heard about you at the
You're a hot topic
the other
lately.
day. You're a hot potato, you know." And so I said, "Okay." So one of my best friends here is a guy named James Pankowicz.
Oh,
James?
yes. James is such a great man.
Oh,
He's
he's
a
the
great
best.
person.
He
really
is the
is.
best. You should have him on. If you're going to interview people, I always recommend James. But there's a few other guys as well. And Dan Antonson is another one, just another lovely person. And Aline Leroy and Josh Simmers and Ron Nix. And there's just a whole group of us foreign people here. So anyway, they said, McCarthy, you know, we'll stay away from McCarthy. Don't go, you know, ostracize McCarthy. You know, that get the protruding nail. So I said, okay, well, I'll do it myself. I'll do it without the assistance of the guys who you know, individually they're all very nice to me, right?
Sure.
So we went and rented the Karate Kaikan and another couple of facilities, and I had, you know, between about 160 some odd black participants from 32 different countries.
Yeah.
Then their family and friends. So it was like well over 200 people came. I'm sure the hotels and the restaurants and the tourism, they all. In fact, Okinawa Tourism Bureau came to me and asked us if we wanted to participate in a demonstration of kokusai dori.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So there was all kinds of wonderful things that happened.
That's awesome.
And I just want to say, so, you know, I've been a knife dan Hanshi for, I don't even know how long, years, 15 years or something like that. And I admit that the jump between Shihan 8th dan and 9th dan was quite quick. I think it was only like 7 years or something like that. Because, or no, 6 years. So when I got my 8th dan back in 2007, you know, my teacher would realize he was sick and dying. So he called me back to get the 9th dan from him because I know it's only 5 or 6 years, but I'm dying and I want to make sure I'm so anyway, and that 9th dan, it's as high as you can ever go under the umbrella. And so, you know, unless you want to start your own style or something like that, and I had no intentions of doing that. I don't think of what I do as my style. It's just a collection of practices that I've systematized into a very clear, transparent way of delivery. Then I call them old school practices, which is the name I got from Kijo Hiroshi Sensei. Call it, in the old days, we used to call it Uchinari, just call it Uchinari. That'll be unique. I said, I can't, because the guys who broke away from Nagami Shoshin, you know, Oshiro's guys, and they call theirs Uchinari. So he said, okay, call yours old school Uchinari. Okay, that's how the name came, by the way.
Nice.
And I have many special guests come to visit us, Karikara Toru, researchers and Shimabukuro Senpo Sensei and Hokama and all these guys. And so it was at the end of the last day at Karate Kaikan, and they were having a big, huge barbecue outside. And Cesar Bukowski told me that Hokama Sensei brought something for me. You know, he's beautiful calligraphy, right? But we were so busy in the daytime with so many people and so many folks coming to visit and back and forth. We never had time, and I kind of forgotten about it. And then right around the end, and at the front table, you got guys like Shimabuku Zempo and Uehara Kunio, head of the Karate Kaikan, and all these special guests sitting at the table. And we just finished the Asa dragon dancing.
Excellent. Yeah.
Ron and Akemi Nix master. They're just beautiful people. And Cesar Bukowski comes out and says, could I have the mic? Could I have the room for a moment? Just before we go any further, we have a special announcement. And I don't know. Okay, what's going on? You know, I'm over in the corner finally with a cold beer in my hand. Going, hey, what is it next? And he gets up and he goes on. You know, Caesar goes on. We go back. You know, we go back as far as not as far as Kentalik, but we go back 50 years. You know, and he goes, Patrick McCarthy. You know, and outstanding researcher. I go, yeah, keep going here. Tell them more. You know, and he goes, And based upon this, Hokama Sensei has a presentation for you. The Hokama Sensei comes up and he pulls out, yanks out this big scroll. He goes, Patrick McCarthy, researcher, blah, 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 blah. We'd like to make this presentation. Hanshi Judan. And I was going there.
That's awesome.
I am not a person lost for words. That's not me.
Aww.
You know, in fact, you know, it's like, I'm usually the one that have to say, it's time to go home now. I was lost for words. I just
No,
went,
congratulations.
and it was a big
Okama Sensei is quite an amazing person, and that's a real honor.
Yeah, no, I
Really
was really, really taken aback by that. And, but look at, yeah, I'm happy because we have a lot of things to talk about. And I would very much like to talk to you about the Bubishi. And by the way, I shape, so we're coming up, we just rented the Okinawa Kaikan and the Okinawa Budo, Professional Budokan to hold a 4-day seminar again in October. I like the 4 days leading up to Karate Nohi. You know, the 1936 meeting of the masters.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They say it was on October. It was covered 2 days, by the way, not 1 day.
Okay.
But nobody knows.
Oh.
There was construction outside the Shokai, by the way. It was so noisy that they had to change
that's so
facility.
great.
But anyway, so but 25th is karate. So we go 20th, 21st, 22nd, 24th. And there's a Tsunehiki, there's the tug of war, there's the 100 kata. There's so many things happening around the day. The weather is absolutely fabulous as well. Best weather in Okinawa. It's a great time to come to Okinawa. And so we're back there again. And again,
Awesome.
Our focus of attention is not style oriented.
Right.
It's Bubishi. It is Bubishi. And so, but rather than talk about herbal pharmacological concoctions and by the way, you know, this whole time of death thing, you know, which some people have just jumped on a bandwagon. $250, I'll teach you the, you know. I mean, if you think back to a time where medical science is not what it is today, where the ability to diagnose, say, brain trauma or something like that, or a hematoma, or sorry, an edema, was not what it is today, then people would, conclude, look, if you got hit, you know, with a concussive trauma impact to the skull at this area, in this soft area, there's a very good chance that you could die within a few days. You know, if you didn't then do this and this and this, right. And so that stems out from that. And then with myth and mythology, you know, it's the secret touch of death, and you know, the Russian horse, the general, and them eating the poison and stuff like that. Because these are kind of secrets, people buy into that type of thing. And you know as well as I do, there's other than intelligent training of using timeless practices against active violence that are physical. The rest is hard work and training.
That's right. No magic shortcuts.
Yeah, and all the other stuff, like, you know, all the weight, Hoja Undo, and the hitting of percussive impact related objects like poles and posts and bags, you know, whatever you want to call them, makiwaras. That's not primary training. That's auxiliary training. Because if you've got a guy's 150 kilograms, he don't need to. He already enough power to hit you. You know, you got a guy who needs to develop, you know, that the summation of joint forces and the ability to contract, you know, float, sink, small, you know, put all this stuff together. They need isolated training practices to facilitate the growth and direction of that particular area. And though that is what I like to talk about for the Bubishi, along with all the other stuff we never got to today. And,
good stuff.
But I would love it if it's a possibility.
I would love it. I would be honored. I really would. Well, Hanshi, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and your time and the offer to talk. And it really is, again, I'm a long time.
Is it really 3 hours already? Was it really?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But you know, again, I'm just really appreciative. I've learned so much from you from afar, even though I've not been your student. I've read your work. I've paid attention to the things that you write. They've been very influential in my understanding. I cannot thank you enough for your foreword to my book, which is my understanding of your material, along with my learning in not only Goju, but for my other teachers and my training in Chinese arts. So I just can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you.
I'm deeply grateful for the sentiment, and thank you so much, because these days, I don't want to harp on it, but these days, having a third party say thank you for helping assist on the pathway that we're both on, by the way, and we're both like-minded, going in the same direction, albeit maybe at different junctions. It's not. I'm going to tell you from my part, it's not common. It's uncommon. So I thank you for citing one of your many sources. I'm deeply appreciative of that, and I think that's why we've one reason why we have such a wonderfully mutual respect for each other, because we are kind of the same, and some people find their direction in one avenue, another finds it in another tributary, but it all flows from the source. So whether you are at the source or following one of the tributaries where the source has since flowed, the answers are inevitable if you continue searching for them. And like I alluded to earlier, if you liken what we do to a pathway, it depends how far down that pathway or that tributary that you get before you can recognize that the destination is not the goal. It's the practice, it's the journey itself, So, brother, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Good luck with editing this or just letting it run. However you want to run, it's fine by me.
Thank you, Sensei. Appreciate it.
Hang on, I forgot. I just wanted to do one thing while I got you, and I normally always do it. Just a moment. And smile. Everybody smiling? I took a screenshot, so
awesome.
So I can say that I can.
A real pleasure. Thank you. I will send you a copy of this so you can review it. If there's anything you'd like me to snip.
No. I don't care. And yeah, I'm honestly, I'm such a trans person, but I would never. First of all, I would never say anything that's not true. First of all, I've learned that in life. I learned that even before I came into the martial arts in the hood that I grew up in. You own what you do and say, and you live with it. That's just the way it is. And if there's a problem, then you pay the consequences. And that's not a big thing today. People don't like to take ownership of their behavior or take responsibility for that. I live for that. And so you're welcome to push it the way it is. And if somebody has a problem or an issue, I love to have one of those open forums, where everybody comes together, and to and one of you should write a book. I'm so busy with other books, that I don't have time to write about me.
Yeah.
But I have now decided from recently that I'm actually going to write a book about my journey, the chapters of my journey. Excellent. I don't know how we're going to call it or what's going to go. And
excellent.
Having doing this permanent visa thing for me has made me now look at what I've done in the past and go, wow, some of those things I forgot about a long time ago, And now I go, okay, so then if that's the case, and I actually have done all this stuff, there's a pretty good reason. There's a pretty good reason why I should write about it, and in writing about it, and not so much for the need for self-gratification, if you will, or but more for sharing the experience with folks who have not been as fortunate as me, or conversely have been as fortunate, but are having a more of an issue with how to circumvent or navigate the problems that are associated with success or popularity.
Sure.
Where you think on one hand people are going to tap you on the back and say what a great job you did, but you don't know they're actually stabbing you in the back, or there's some self serving agenda. But and I think that's one of the reasons I want to write. Plus the wonderful opportunity that just making the business. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go meet that guy. I don't care how much money. Money is just you get to a point in life where money is really important. Money is important to survive.
Yes.
And if you're lucky to make, say, a little extra money, put aside after your kids are all gone, got a few bucks on the side where you say, I'm not worried anymore about money, but I'm interested in using my money or my platform or my position or my celebrity to help facilitate the direction of the growth of someone else.
Yeah.
That comes back on you in many ways self-fulfilling, and also it just makes you feel good type of thing, you know. And I don't know, I want to close this off because I forgot earlier. I wanted to mention about photographs. So when I was young, in my neighborhood, now we would discover many years later, by the way, our community would discover that our neighborhood was the victim of arson. That a developer wanted our whole area, and we didn't come from a very well-to-do area, by the way, but a developer wanted that area to build a new development and a big skating rink and stuff like this, right? And for the community. And a politician, by the way.
Wow.
And although never proved, all our neighborhood burned to the ground. So we made it out alive. Some people did not. And everything that we owned, we lost everything.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so anyway, and then we had to move from there over to this little development called Rockwood Court. It's around 1959. And so my mother bought me when I went into school. My mother bought me. You probably don't know what these are, but Kodak, which was a camera company, way back in the day, invented a little tiny plastic camera that they used to put inside a yellow box. And it was called a Kodak Instamatic.
Oh,
And
yeah.
You remember those?
I do. I'm 50.
Oh gosh, okay, so that was a good decade, by the way. And you used to get these little square light bulb flashes, and you'd stick the square light, and so every time you'd wind it over, it would turn around. So you get 4 flashes, and you could get the film came in a little container. It was 12, 24, 36. And so if you say you had 36, like today, we just shoot photos like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But back in those days, a film roll of 36 might take you 2 years or more,
right?
Unless you're at a party or something, right? And then when you develop them, they were quite expensive, and you never know whether the picture came out or not. So we lost all of our family photos.
Oh,
my mother gave me this camera. She said, "Patrick, take photographs because life is a short ride." I never got that in jail. Life is a short ride, and you will use these to look back and reflect upon your life and the memories and the indelible moments and the tragic moments of your life. And those photographs will become a book for you. And they will be the book of your memories. And I remember even in the early going to by the way, the only other guy I ever knew in those days who took a camera to karate tournaments was George Dillman, by the way. You see Dillman all the time at tournaments with his camera. That's another story for another. He went down another road.
Yeah.
And so, and folks would make fun of me, by the way, you know, McCarthy, hey, have camera, we'll travel. How's it going, McCarthy? Hey, cheese, you know, that bully type of thing.
Sure. Those
same guys, by the way, are the guys who've come to me over the last 20 years going, excuse me, do you remember, do you have any of those photos?
Right.
And the other joke, just because you made me think of it now, is you know, during the 90s, from the time I would meet, say, Dan Smith. And Dan Smith hired me. I was on my way to Venezuela to teach, and I was over in Kentucky at Bill Dimitrich's in Covington, Kentucky, teaching for him. Yeah, I hooked him up to get into the Batoka Kai back in the day.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, if you got some free time in between, I'd like to fly you to Atlanta. And I flew to Atlanta with Jim Davenport, who was one of his students. Jim sadly passed away as well. Actually, passed away here in Okinawa on one of these karate tourist things.
Oh, wow.
And so I met Dan, and in those days, the big deal was the Cyber Dojo with Howard High. Used to run.
I remember. I've been active on that since
Oh my God,
day one. Yeah.
I remember when he asked me to go on board there. He said, so you know what you do? You just go on, and I think it was around May or June of 1996 or so. He said, you know, you just go on and you just introduce yourself, say who you are, give your credentials, and then people are going to ask you questions, and you can, you know, great. Okay. So, you know, I go on, I go, hi everybody. My name is Patrick McCarthy. I'm a Kyoshi Nanadan. in Japan, and you know, I wrote this, I did this, I did. Nice to meet you. Hope you love to. And the first guy I get is Matt Henderson going, "You asshole! Who the hell do you think you are? You're fine." And I went, "Okay."
Wow.
And the second guy was this guy Mike Davis from the Dragon List, who I would find out later had like 20 pseudonyms, and
Oh gosh.
19 of the 20 people attacking me, other than Matt Henderson, was him.
Oh geez.
Oh yeah, it was but talk about a great platform to learn about the bullshit, the garbage going on was, oh my God.
And then, of course, we would be remiss if we were talking about internet trolls and didn't mention Ron Gonanan. So the man who most of us have all had some challenges with at some point in time.
I must admit, I kind of feel partially responsible for Ron Gonanan, because I actually first came into contact with him through Vince Morris, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And then we were thinking, I'll get him out of my hair. I'm going to introduce him to this taxi driver I know here
right.
now, who's a lovely guy, by the way. He's a lovely guy, but he just has his moral compass is set at a different stop, And he used to be the secretary for
Hohenzollern, no?
So he's had a drawer full of signed certificates long after the passing of Hohenzollern. So he's
signed
about my candy, and I taught him.
Yeah.
I was telling you back, to fly to China in those days, I would fly out of Okinawa, right? Because it's simple to fly across, right? And so you need the ride to the airport, and this guy, I drive you, and like to speak English, he loved anything to do with White Crane.
Yeah.
So I remember teaching Haporen, Nepai, and Hakusura, those three in a row. That only those three, nothing more. And then I started hearing from people, I just got my seventh down. I kept it for fruitful these days. Did you know that I have a Shihan license in Matsumura from Hohenzollern?
That's awesome.
Ask me next time, I'll show it to you. But anyway, let's take a second. So the funny part about it is this: those guys on Cyber Dojo who would vehemently attack me and criticize me for making up all this stuff are now being congratulated for teaching it. How about that? Isn't that a great way to end?
Well, you've presented that quote somewhere along the line about the three stages of truth, right? So that's just a
Schopenhauerism. Yep, yeah. Ridicule, opposition, and self-evidency. Yeah,
Hanshi, not that I'm anywhere near your reputation in this space, but I've seen it happen even with my one small work. I've seen people do, I've gone through some strange stuff, but anyhow.
And look at I wish I would have known then what I now know, that this is just part and parcel of gaining and look at, I can actually reflect back upon my old football coach in high school. They used to call me Mac back then, Mac, he'd say, Mac, come here. And he'd lean in and he'd say, Mac, if you're gonna carry the ball, I was a small guy in spite of how I looked like fucking slammed by these linebackers, and like, Christ, can you imagine being 15-year-old old, the guy weighs 150 kilograms? I go, what? He's like three people in one, I'm like 72 kilograms, and I complained. I said, I don't want to carry the ball anymore. He goes, Mac, if you carry the ball, you're always going to get tackled. Well, I wouldn't get the metaphor to that till way, way later, And gymnastics, wrestling, karate. Yeah. I mean, I never won a tournament in my life. I mean, I got my second dan in July of 1973. I never won a black belt tournament until the following year, 1974, at which time I won the North American Karate Kung Fu Championships. And then I don't think I lost another tournament until I retired in the mid-1980s. My dojo used to look like a trophy shop,
Yeah. I've seen the pictures.
It's funny how people want to frame you. The lens changes. Even your friends, I go, why is my friend why my friend treating me like that? I mean, we're like pals. And I noticed he's acting. And then I said, oh, you know, so-and-so's your friend. I go, yeah, like we're good friends. He goes, no, 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 no. What do you mean? He goes, well, you know, whenever your name comes up around him, they say, oh, I taught him everything he knew. Or if they didn't like you, he goes, yeah, and here's something else about him too, you know, and I go, all right. Now, of course, I know, you know, now the subsequent reading and studying, why do people do this? How I get it.
That's really unfortunate.
And it's, you know, I do forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do. And I get it now. And I get it. You know, you can't, don't waste a moment on it, man. Just
you know, one of these other sayings that I've glommed onto is this idea that, you know, to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. I think this is part and parcel to what you were saying about the protruding nail, right? If you are anyhow an innovator, if you anyhow buck the system, you're gonna catch a lot of criticism by the uber traditionalists. You got the uber progressives and the uber traditionalists, and you try to seek your path and find your understanding of a living tradition and your place in that. And that's been a real challenge for me over the years. I've come through a lot of phases, and I feel very comfortable where I am today in my place in these traditions. But it's been a hard road, and I think we've
well, you
all
know,
got.
they say even if you were standing on a corner with Mother Teresa handing out $100 bills, someone's going to say he stole the money, you know, or sell ice cream or something like that, you know, because. But I enjoy listening to you. I've listened to many of your talks, mind you, with a glass of wine in my hand and relaxing. And
well done.
you have a great presentation. You know,
thanks.
you work in front of the camera quite well. You know how to hold your hands and illustrate a point, and that's not an easy not an easy thing to do. There's a few people I know are very well at that. There's other people who try to do it, they're not very good at it. And I think it's a good natural thing for you. And you tend to remain quite dispassionate in your delivery of information, as opposed to say, yeah, you know, and by staying on topic and talking about mechanics and practices and certainly citing the sources of styles and methodology where they come with it. I mean, that helps build an audience. And you know, these days, because we've gone through so many, you know, jujitsu tricks, judo, karate, kempo, kung fu, kickboxing, ninja, you know, all the MMA, you know, all these, you know,
flavor of the week.
Every time something new evolves, a part of that iceberg breaks off to go. Because you know, in the beginning, when it was just 2 or 3 things, the Kyokushin, I go to the tournament, I got disqualified every time because they're losers. They couldn't take the force of the master. Well, they weren't full contact tournaments to start with, you know.
Right. You were breaking the rules.
Of course, smashing the person in the face certainly would have intimidated him, and maybe even the referee. But ultimately, you're going out the door, type of thing.
Right.
Well, no, they have their own tournaments, and then the MMA guys, they get their tournaments, and whatever version of it you want to go with, and then the BJJ guys, and then the catch. Everybody's got their own versions now, so you don't see so much arguing anymore between, say, a kickboxer and a karate guy, because it's 2 separate fields of events, you know.
Right.
So the nice part about this is, and especially you and I, and one of the one common thread that weaves together the fabric of this multi-dimensional tradition that brings us together is forms, kata, you know, and it's this whole, you know, they lost the formula. I don't think they lost the formula as much as they misunderstood the origins. To understand what the form was never meant to teach you anything in the first place, meant to culminate what you should learn interpersonal practice in the first place, you know. And in doing that, it opens up yet one more door, and one more door for understanding. This is why these old manuals got this guy does this, guy does this, and they're right about the philosophy behind it. And if you get hurt, you got to make this one tiger's tooth, the urine from a girl under 3, and mix it with placenta, drink it or die, whatever. And so, you know, that whole part and parcel becomes a tradition on its own.
Yeah.
And I think that's only when it's wrapped hermetically sealed, never to be changed,
Right.
is where you come up with the problems,
Yeah.
And that's facilitated by this Confucian-based culture where,
Yeah.
where you don't question authority. The master said you do it this way. Who are you? You've only been here 5 years.
Right.
Shut up and do it this way, type of thing. So
Right. If there's any failure, it's the student's fault.
Well, and that's the other, and certainly here in Japan, and even more so in Okinawa, is they deify some of these old. And don't get me wrong, I guess I'm only 70, but I got to tell you something. And I know guys in their 80s. I don't know, the ravishness of time hasn't got to me. They're still bouncing around, and so I get it. If you're 80 years old and get up in a stage in Okada, that's pretty impressive,
Yeah.
But even though you might be 80 or 90 getting on stage to do a kata, your fist is still not looking like that, or you're not going like that,
Right.
I mean, your technique is still going to be good. It's maybe just not going to be as energetic. And some of the stuff I see, I just okay, And so I think maybe next time we pick up whatever this, let's dive right into Taiwan first, because that was just such a wonderful revelation for me.
That's exciting.
Oh my gosh. And the Bubishi on top of that, and all the other stuff.
That's very cool. Well, I just mentioned before we break, I've been spending a lot of time working on, Chiji Guan had a contemporary, his name was Yu Dayo. Chiji Guan wrote about Yu Dayo's sword classic as like a marvelous thing. I've been spending a lot of time on the sword classic trying to understand it. And
where are you sourcing your information from?
Some Chinese language sources that I've been working on translating and understanding. So it's been a challenge, but it's something I look forward to working on the next couple of years further. It's been a blast.
Well, my friend, once again, I think what are we, hour number 4 now?
Well, yes, I better get going. My wife will be calling soon. So,
mine brought me a cup of tea.
Ah, so sweet.
This was not part of the interview, but just before I sat down to get started, my wife came upstairs and she said, my son, loves to challenge me on all kinds of issues. He lives in Tokyo, and he travels. He's a world traveler for business, what he does. But he's just coming to. He's coming to Okinawa tomorrow morning, I think. Or
awesome!
But I gotta tomorrow. I have to actually be at Hokama's dojo. I got some stuff. I brought him back some gifts from China.
Oh,
by the way.
good.
I brought him back a copy of the Rubishi, by the way.
That's good. He was born in Taiwan, wasn't he?
He was born in Taiwan, yeah.
I thought so. Yeah.
Super
cool.
That's why I gotta do this thing. I gotta go. So now I gotta go back and talk to her. I gotta call my son, who's probably in the air flying right now. But
awesome. Well, have a great time.
Thank you so much, Russ. And look at
thank you.
Just go ahead whenever you're ready to publish this. Just go ahead and publish it and just like send me a link to it so I know.
Will do.
And I'll go watch it.
Sounds great. Take care.
Thank you. How do I turn it off now? Okay, leave.
I got it. Take care.
Okay, bye. Bye-bye.